Do you think that the House of Reps can still, the House of Reps and perhaps the Namani Committee can do anything about, you know, this, it would say, omission?
That's actually our hope and our prayer. We are hoping that what the Senate has come up with is encouraging. We're expecting that the House of Reps, especially since they have been quite busy with the real business of legislating lately, should do better. And we're hoping that, of course, the Namani Committee would, given the caliber of people involved in that committee, would actually have some stronger recommendations, and that when they do, this will not be one of those bills, one of those efforts that will be dished because of some pecuniary interest. We are hoping that we can have a conducive political atmosphere for all of them to harmonize and agree on what is best for the country, and we can move forward. We're hoping that this will not be enmeshed in any petty politics and what have you. So we are hoping that they can do better than what the Senate has done, but this is commendable enough.
How concerned are you that those who perpetrate electoral violence, we have not had any arrests or prosecution?
I am deeply concerned. I don't think that they would be in the nearest future. With all due respect, those who have the powers to make these things happen are themselves beneficiaries, you know, if not the actors, you know, the real masquerade behind some of these actions. And that's why you can see that there is a lot of reticence in terms of addressing. The INEC has consistently, and civil society, we at TMG and all, and even the WISE panel report, are consistently said, let us have an independent body to prosecute and deal with electoral offenses. Not only should that happen, we should also ensure that that law that that committee and whatever they do is robust enough to let people know that if you benefit from a fraudulent process and it's established that you contributed to that fraud, anything that you have benefited from, not only will the system take it back from you, but it will take it back and still punish you. You know, so when people know that, why do I want to be maybe a governor or a rep member for a year, maybe get access to some money, and then I still come back, cough out that money, and go to jail? Then we're going to start to see real deterrence. We know some of the things that happened in some of the runoff elections lately, and we are not seeing, we don't know how this is going to end, and then it does take some time, and because of that time lag, many people do feel that, oh, you can do things and get away with it. We hope that the justice system, the wheel of justice, can grind a little faster so that people are able to connect the crime and the punishment. When you do give the punishment, when you do deal with this, some of these issues 2, 3, 4 years later, the citizenry are not able to properly locate the two together. But when these things grind faster, and so people have killed policemen, we are able to quickly bring them to book. People have stolen ballot boxes. If within that cycle, we're able to bring them to book, it will really help in telling the politicians that it's not business as usual anymore.
You know, the Senate, the House of Reps had their own session. They had a storming session. There were those who agreed and those who disagreed with certain provisions of the Electoral Act. And in fact, some of those who disagreed thought that if INEC wants to introduce electronic voting, yeah, I should go ahead and do so and not equate that with the card reader. Some of them argued that the card reader is a tool, a means of disenfranchising Nigerians. And so go full-blown and not just say because you're using card reader, that is tantamount to electronic voting.
Well, what they fail to understand is that when you say electronic voting, it's not just an action, it's a process. And card reader is one of that. We wouldn't have needed a card reader for a country where a national ID card is actually effective. But we couldn't get that program done. If we had that, if everybody have their social security number, then it's become easy. You don't even need some of the... But what we're saying here is that for our elections to be proper, we need a proper means of validating who is coming to vote. That is where it starts from. And the card reader is a huge improvement in the manual system that we had before. We know that, of course, the card readers faced a lot of challenges, which can be surmounted. You know, in places where it didn't work, we can have backups. What we need to do is to improve on that system. Like I said, it's important that both the legislators and citizens understand that getting to electronic voting is not going to be a leap. It has to be a journey. In Nigeria, you transfer money via phone, and the person don't get it 2-3 days. Though it's not the norm, I mean, it's not the rule, it's an exception. But
isn't it about 1%?
And those who feel it, that 1% you are talking about, you have to think about those who bear the brunt. So if, for instance...
there will be substantial compliance if it's just 1%.
If there is substantial compliance, and that is good. That you can't have a perfect system. I've said that earlier.
All right. Do you think that this will ultimately ensure that the results are announced faster and not that you have to wait till the next morning before you announce results?
Even if results wait till the next morning, or even the next afternoon, what's important is that nothing happens to anything within that time lag. That's what, because other things could come up to, and you can't really put that in the law that you must announce the result by so time or whatever.
Why can't they put that in the law?
Because if you put that in the law, you know lawyers the way they are. If you put that in the law and something do happen to frustrate that, either naturally or by manipulation, that's going to give room to a whole series of litigation. I think what's important is how do we ensure the sanity and sanctity of the data from when it's being uploaded to when it's collated and announced. If we can ensure that, and if it can be traced back, so if somebody flags up something and says, no, was not what was announced at our polling booth, how easy is it for us to quickly trace back and see if there's been an error anywhere? And machines could also have their own problems. It doesn't necessarily mean that people have manipulated. So how easy is it for us to walk back? How are we able to use the manual information to verify and validate the electronic information? So it's going to be...
We need to wrap up. Yes, we appreciate your coming on today. Sulaiman Aregbabu is the Southwest Coordinator of Transition Monitoring Group.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back in a moment. Join us again.
I believe that Justice Uwais carried out a very important exercise and did a fantastic work. But I'm not too sure whether the political will to implement his suggestions can be attested. But this time around, I personally have confidence in Mr. President, his ability, his political will, his audacity to implement what will make Nigerians proud of our electoral system. Regardless of how excellent Justice Uwais' report must have been, nothing is so good that you cannot improve on it. I think that's the essence of setting up another committee. Not exactly to copy what the other committee did, but to improve on it and fine-tune it. Since 2008, lots of changes must have taken place both in our political system and in our country. And as the Honorable Attorney General said, we're expected to take a look, a hard look, at what we consider the best practices. Most politicians will know at what point election is rigged. You should know that. Is it at the point of the voting, or collection, or movement of paper, or ballot boxes, and so on? You should know that. And we expect that people will make suggestions on how to cut down on irregularities.